All right, now we're going to start having some wild rides. The basics are sort of in place. I'd like you to turn in your notes, if you got them, to this incredible, I think one of the most wonderful studies in all the Bible. So Shane's going to pull the PowerPoint up, but it's simply called this: love is a choice, not a feeling. It's a choice, not a feeling. So if we're going to take this law of the Lord and we're going to boil it all down and say what actually does it come down to, it all adds up to love. But what in the fat does love mean? We have so many different weird ideas about what love is. And this particular section that you're looking at has a lot of Bible study words. Now, I've given you these because some of you might have access to good lexicons, either some online or maybe in books and stuff. But it is important when we're hinging so much on a single word to get a good biblically rooted picture and historically rooted picture of what does this word actually mean. Now, I can use the word love in English so many ways. I can say, I love crunchy bars. I love my doggy. I love my grandmother. I love these shoes. They're very comfortable. I love my wife. Amen. I love skydiving. That's not true, but I just thought I'd throw that one in. Do you love your grandmother the way you love crunchy bars? I hope not. But that same word in English has all these different shades of meaning. So in the original languages, we have Hebrew and we have Greek. I want to particularly focus on this unusual word. It's partway down your thing. See that? Kesed, see that word about under Hebrew? This is a very unusual word. There actually is no easy way to translate this word in English at all. There's no actual English equivalent of this word. It is translated by different things. I put the King James uses 11 different words to translate it. The favorite being mercy, revised stilted vision. RSV renders it steadfast love, 178 times. Other meanings, ways it's been translated, has been love, kindness, loving kindness, mercy, loyalty, promise, devotion, favor, and goodness. And Glick says it indicates some kind of relationship and a deep, lasting affection. And goes on, what does the word tell us about that relationship? What is the attitude it denotes? Plainly, it is an attitude of goodwill. But it is more than that. It is love strengthened by loyalty. Hesed was not merely love dependent solely on the subject, but it is at the same time loyalty and duty. Can you see these things together? Do you put love and loyalty together? Do we in our culture put love and loyalty together? Or tie in duty with love? We think these are opposite things. They used to talk about devotions being the duty of the Christian. It doesn't mean it's boring. It means that this is part of the loyalty that you have when you love. That's why the Living Bible is not strictly speaking a translation, it's a paraphrase, but there's at least 2 good verses in the Living Bible. There may be 4, but there's at least 2 good ones. And this is a wonderful paraphrase of 1 Corinthians 13. When you love someone, you'll be loyal to them, no matter what the cost. You will always believe in them, always expect the best of them, and always stand your ground in defending them. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you love Jesus? I'm going to ask you who are husbands, do you love your wife? Wives, do you love your husband? Children, do you love your parents? This is a description. That's just the Hebrew word. This untranslatable easily into English. It has to have a whole cluster of words around it. And if you look at the bottom, it goes this. Snaithhold, it means faithfulness rather than kindness. It is possible to be kind but not faithful. We find the word to involve in almost every case a substratum of fixed, determined, almost stubborn steadfastness. Wouldn't it be lovely to see that love in the church? A fixed, almost stubborn, I will stay with you, Wasn't that the idea of the marriage vows? For better or worse, that thing? That independent of circumstances. What happens to you, what happens to me? We will commit ourselves to each other. When I made that promise to my wife, I didn't say, Faye, I will love you on Sundays. Now, on Monday there's Agatha, and Tuesday... My parents loved each other and lived with each other. Ripped apart in the early days. God saved them both miraculously and loved each other for close to 60 years. And when my dad, who was an athlete, had a massive stroke that completely incapacitated him, my mother moved into the hospital in the kind of rest home side of it just so she could be with him, and stayed by his side till he died. There is a great missing loyalty, a great missing loss of steadfastness. And love to people means, at the moment, babe, you turn me on, but tomorrow, who knows? Old Rolling Stones, I sometimes listen to the Stones for my devotions. An old Rolling Stones song summed up that attitude. Who wants yesterday's papers? Who wants yesterday's girls? Who wants yesterday's papers? Nobody in the world. That's what we like. We treat people like trash. If you make me happy, if you do these things for me, then I'll help you. That is not what love is at all. And the saddest thing is that that attitude comes into the church, and the church is the only ones who ought to know what love is. It's summed up like this. To love God is to have pleasure in Him and strive impulsively after Him. Those who love God are basically those who seek God for His own sake. That's intrinsic value. See that? Now, we're going to go to Greek, okay? And there is a bunch of different words, and I put some of those here. But that's kind of that summary of the faithfulness of God. Here is another set of words, and I've given a very quick overview summary of those ones for you. Greek is a lot more descriptive a language in some ways. Hebrew is a good language for action. If you want to say, go get a donkey, Hebrew's good. You just get donkey, and that's it. If you want to describe donkey, then you go to Greek. So I think it's interesting that God puts action stuff first and then description later in the scriptures that we've got. Not think about it first and then act maybe later. Isn't that? It's more important that you do what God says than you're able to describe what happens. So we have these different words. We have philia and philine, and I've never actually heard anybody called philine. Probably a fairly nice word. There's all this little stuff about Peter and Jesus. When you see these words, there is a friendship that comes, an idea of a shared bond between the person loving and the person or object loved. They've got something in common with each other. One finds a reflection of what they're doing or their nature in the person or the object that they love. It's a love of liking. It's actually, I like you. See? We have in America they have a town called Philadelphia. This is actually another Greek word. It's tied in with this love word, phileo. It's like, I like you. Something cool about you. And it's not just, you turn me on, babe, because you got great hair or something, which is eros, which actually doesn't even appear in this. The love of liking has this incredible little play when Jesus says to Peter, Peter, do you love me? And he uses this word, a derivative of agape, see? And then Peter says, Lord, you know I like you. And Jesus said, do you love me? You know he can't use that word. And Jesus said, do you like me, Peter? And then he tells him how he's going to die. Jesus is the only one who can tell you how you're going to die and then say, follow me. He's the only person who can do that. The Greeks made much of friendship, fondness, the affection, and then there's this epithumia. Briefly mention this one. Epithumia, which is translated sometimes strong desire. We tend to think that the reason why something is wrong is because it's intense. Why do you think the church is so boring to people? I look at people sometimes and say, you used to be a party animal. Now look, it's almost 9. It's time I went to bed, see? And it looks like that when you got saved, all the juice was drained out of your life. All this in the name of the God who made the universe. I reckon that Christians ought to be more intensely passionate than any other person on earth. The word agape, this special noun rescued from an obscure family of Greek words, was given meaning and import never before used. And I've given you here that word agapeo. Classical Greek, it's even the word agape itself does not appear at all in classical Greek. There are various values of it, and I put some of this together. See if it's in your notes, if you go down a little bit. The original words that were like it had different kinds of meanings. The idea of wondering at or admiring, to appreciate, to sometimes the phrase was used, a love of prizing. You prize something. The idea came through of putting something above something else and valuing it for what it is. See how the church, there was something here that Greek culture, Greek philosophy never even had a word for because it didn't appear. None of their gods had this kind of thing at all. The gods existed to be loved. Nobody said the gods loved at all. So there was no word in classical Greek that would actually describe this thing that hit the world when Jesus died and rose again. So the word they actually pulled out of nothing. All of these strands came together: prizing, liking, setting, choosing, valuing, awe. It all came together into this marvelous word, agape. God's love is the greatest force in the universe. Now, Bible says that the heavens are the work of God's fingers, that the earth is his handiwork. Fingers, hands, but his right arm brought him salvation. It takes more power to save a man than to build a universe. And that is why the task of evangelism, of missions and revival is supernatural. You can't do it. I can't do it. He can. And so this word it's got all of those elements we've been talking about in these different places. We'll boil it down to say this. Love, true love, it is an action of the divine will. It is a deliberate choice made without assignable cause, save that which lies in the nature of God. Now, when God says he loves you, it is not the way we have said, and Greek philosophy said, love is. Our kinds of love are like this. I will love you if. I will love you when. I will love you because. I will love you. See those things? Our conditionals. We put, if you will behave this way, if you will be this to me, I will love you. I will love you when you do this for me. I will love you while you're doing this for me. I will love you unless you do this. This love is not like that at all. This is a love that doesn't have those conditions in it. It is a love that loves regardless of what you do or what you say or what you think, because it's not rooted in who you are. It's rooted in who he is. And to understand this is to understand the utter power of who God is. You see, we treat people the way they've treated us. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. If not, then, you better watch your butt, man, because when I went to school, I never beat anybody up. I was a chemist. I just slipped a pill into their lunch. So they went to the toilet the next 3 days. I think they were bleeding to death. We have ways and means of getting back to people. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. If you get hurt by somebody, who has the greatest power to hurt you? Somebody you hardly know or somebody who's very close to you? You see, intimacy and closeness, when you are close to somebody, you have power to hurt them much more than if they hardly know. If somebody comes up and goes, "Hey, fatty," or something, you don't know them from a bar or so, you go, "Yeah, fat yourself," or something. But if somebody you really have looked up to, admired, goes, "I think you're really fat," see that? It just cuts you into 14 pieces. Therefore, things that are close and deeply committed, the more a person knows you, the more they understand you. Like, when you let them down, you have power to hurt them. I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think God feels like when he looks at his world? When you make this beautiful being, man and woman, in your image, in your likeness, the only being ever made like this. Somebody asked me, "You think there's life on other worlds?" Maybe. There's other kinds of life than human, but I'll tell you this. God only had one son, and he became man, which means us, this planet, this humanity, is the greatest thing God ever made. That is why there's a war on for your life. And the honors and the privileges God assigned to mankind, he never even gave to the angels.